Welcome back to the Grands Club podcast, where we explore the joys of grandparenting, life lessons, and unforgettable experiences with our grandchildren. Joining this episode is a very special guest, Elaine Sciolino, former Paris bureau chief for the New York Times and acclaimed author of The Only Street in Paris and The Seine, the river that made Paris. Her latest book, Adventures at the Louvre, is an enchanting journey through one of the world's greatest museums. Elaine, welcome. It's so great to speak with you again.
Kathy, it's so nice to see you. I just wish you'd come to Paris soon again.
Oh, I'm gonna book a flight. Oh gosh, I just love your new book. I love your writing. So I'm very biased, I have to tell our listeners. But you always take the reader on such an interesting journey. And I really do feel like I am being educated and I enjoy the ride along the way. And now here you have taken hold of the Louvre, which is quite an iconic and quite large museum and a playground of discovery and storytelling. But what inspired you to tackle that project?
Gosh, it was folly, Kathy. It was during COVID, and I was stuck at home because we couldn't leave Paris except for 1 hour a day and 1 kilometer away from home. And so I decided to clean out all my books, and I found this incredible two-volume set of Paris in 1913, and it had these gorgeous color photographs of Paris, of the Louvre. And I thought, this is really interesting, and maybe it'll be good for my soul to discover this whole new world. And just became more and more interested in the Louvre, and I went and found all my books on the Louvre so that by the time the Louvre opened up again, I was ready for action.
Oh, I bet. Well, many of our listeners are grandparents. Now, they don't have to be grandparents, but there's some connection to a child or children. And we love taking our grandchildren on meaningful trips and little adventures, even if it's to the park and whatnot. But how do you break down this massive Louvre and make it fun and interactive for kids? I mean, I can't wait to bring my grandchildren. Where do we start?
If you bring your grandchildren, I have one main rule, which is never go to the Louvre on an empty stomach or with a full bladder.
Got
So
it.
make sure you take them to a cafe, and there are a couple of wonderful cafes near the Louvre for a good chocolat chaud, hot chocolate, and a croque monsieur and a trip to the toilet. Because if you decide to like take the metro from Montmartre or from the Rue de Varenne, where you're near where your brother lives, and you say, "Oh, I'll just wait till I get into the Louvre and we'll grab a sandwich and go to the toilet there." No, it's not going to happen. So
Oh,
your kids have to be ready for and your grandkids have to be ready for battle, which means they have to be well fed and well toileted. Yes.
that is a great point because I am sure you're not allowed to eat as you walk through the Louvre.
Well, people do it and they drink, but it's just not it's not fun. The Louvre is a fortress, and it's still a fortress. It's the biggest, most visited museum in the world, and it's impossible to master the Louvre. And so the kids have to go in prepared for battle. It truly is a challenge to master the Louvre. It's not like one of those cute little museums like the Rodin Museum or even like the Orsay Museum, which you love. It was built as a fortress, and then it became a palace, and only then, after the French Revolution, did it become a museum. So it's a tough place to crack.
Exactly. I just know when we walk through it often, walking around Paris, that you just look all around because it's so massive. And I always think, okay, which section? Where do we even start? So with small children, and
Yes.
maybe we could kind of break it down because even if we say we get They're the little ones that are in strollers and they're going to be whatever, fine in a stroller. But then you get to the ones that sort of are end of preschool, kindergarten, they're going into grade school, etc. So how do we make this enticing and whimsical and perhaps a treasure hunt? How do we do that? How do we prepare for that kind of trip?
It's very easy. Just bribe them.
I love that. This still works.
I pick cats and dogs. You can do animals in the Louvre, but I start with cats and dogs, and you can decide, okay, if they're like 5 years old or up to about 8 years old, say, I don't know, what's the going rate in the US to make a difference? 50 cents, a dollar for every cat.
Oh, yes. Well,
50,
the tooth
50,
fairy has gotten very expensive.
well, what's the tooth fairy these days?
Gosh, I don't know. I've heard like silver dollars. I've heard $20. I
Okay.
mean, it's
All right. All
crazy.
right. All right. Well, we don't want to do that. But how about a dollar for each cat and dog? Okay, because there's cats and dogs throughout the entire Louvre.
Oh,
And that would be my, and I discovered this one day when I was looking at the very famous Marriage Feast of Cana painting, which is just opposite the Mona Lisa. And this father was with his grandchild, with his son and grandchild, and he was trying to get the little kid to look at the painting, and he kept saying, "So, what do you see in the center of this painting?" And the kid's looking and looking and looking, and the father is trying to get him to say, "Well, Jesus Christ." And the little kid says, "Two dogs." And I realized then that, this is great. And the father said, "Yeah, two dogs. And what else do you see?" And he said, "Well, I see a cat there and I see another dog up here." So that's when I got the idea, the bribing idea, because it really does work. If there is a monetary goal for your child, for most children, they will appreciate the payoff at the end. And you could have it be a sliding scale. Like there's fewer lions, so you could say, okay, maybe $3 for a lion and maybe $5 for a snake, and one of the antique Egyptian monster bodies, maybe $5 if you see a animal's head on a human body. So you can play with it. I can help you draw up a classification for.
I think we should do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we should
yeah,
definitely do a little kids
definitely.
tour. Absolutely. But this is going to be a very expensive trip to Paris, I can see.
Yeah, but you know what? They'll be happy. That's the thing. You go to the Louvre, don't even, I mean, my next thing would be to say, don't even bother with little kids to go see the three superstars, which are the Mona Lisa, the Venus de Milo, and the Winged Victory of Samothrace, better known as Nike, like the shoes. The kids are not going to remember seeing them, and they're just going to be jostled by zillions of other people. Don't even bother. Just let them have fun. Let them just get lost, wander around.
Exactly. So where should we start? Like with giraffes or, where would you begin? Mummies? What about the Egyptian collection?
Mummies is not a bad idea. I'll tell you why. The ancient Egyptian collection, there is a real mummy, and it is kind of separate from the rest of the collection because there really was a human body inside this mummy. And so you want to have some respect for the mummy. But next to the human remains are animal mummies. I mean, did your kids know that there were cat
Wow.
mummies and bird mummies and rabbit mummies, and so that you could do a whole mummy kind of um, uh, grandmummy could do mummies with the kids.
It's
And
true.
then you can move to the sarcophagus, so they see these huge things that are larger than life, where the mummies were placed before they were buried. So that's a very good idea. Mummies is good.
And I think also managing expectations and not thinking, oh, we're going to spend the whole day, maybe we break it up and do bits and pieces. So we want it to be someplace they want to return to and not be like, I don't want to do that again.
Well, I can just tell you that I wrote in my book that the first time I went to the Louvre, I have no memory of my first time ever to the Louvre. I found my journal from when I was a junior in college, and I literally wrote in my journal, I went to the Louvre and walked outside of the Tuileries Gardens along the shops. That's my memory of the Louvre.
Oh my gosh.
And even Laurence Descartes, who's the current director of the Louvre, I asked her in one of my interviews, what do you remember about your first trip to the Louvre? And she said, I remember nothing about my first trip to the Louvre.
There you go. Maybe because it is so daunting, it's so special. Well, you and your husband Andy have been so fortunate to live in Paris for so many years. My gosh, what a life journey. And you've written so extensively about Paris and about France, the romance of one of my favorites, the only street in Paris where you live. And which I again can't wait to take my family on a walk there, my little ones. And then The Seine, which is just a beauty of a book and really takes us on quite a river journey, a river adventure. But what is it about Paris that has captured your heart for so many years? Like the last time we were there, just a few months ago, I know my husband and I looked at each other and we just said, we could live here. We just fall in love with that city all over again every time we're there.
It's interesting you asked this question because we came here originally thinking we would be here for from 3 to 5 years, and now we've been here for more than 20 years. And I think it feels comfortable. You know, we still have a house in Washington, but it feels very livable. You know, you mentioned the only street in Paris. We live in a neighborhood where I walk out on the street and half a block away from where I live, I know all the shopkeepers. They know me by name. And there's just something fun and exciting about that. You know, just today I was out at the fish market and poor Akeem had a problem with his tooth and we talked about his tooth. But it's that old sense of community that you used to get in small town America when you had you know, you either had a church or a synagogue or you know, a men's or a women's club. You had some community outside of the family that pulled you and connected you. And so it's that constant connection which we have found here that I don't know if we would find it as easily at this stage of our lives in the United States.
Yeah, that's so true. I think we live in a small town outside of DC, and I think we have that type of community here. And
Yes.
maybe that's what we were feeling, but it's a big city. It's exciting and it's kind of noisy, but not too noisy. And it's full of adventure and love the tiny itty bitty little cafes. It's not everything is, it's just hugely expensive. They can be extremely affordable. And
Well, talk about a small town. I mean, there is this feeling of the scale of Paris that you really could walk from one end of Paris to the other in a day. It's not like London. It's not like all of New York. I mean, Paris is smaller than the Bronx, I think, or about the same size, and that makes it exciting because you feel connected all the time by walking and by seeing it, different epochs of different eras of history in your surroundings.
it's so true. My brother and I, in our last visit, we all decided we were going to go to the Paris flea market, which we have never been to. And we had lunch up there and whatnot. And then the two of us decided we're going to walk back to his place. So we walked all the way from the Paris flea market through all these neighborhoods. We came by your neighborhood and then down all the way, where he lives. And I think it was about 14 miles.
Oh
And
my gosh,
was
that is wild.
it was wonderful. It was so wonderful. And we had to stop along the way for an Orangina to to get some quench our thirst. But I know what you're saying about it. It's just, oh gosh, what a beautiful place. Well, and now with your new book, it's you bring a fresh twist to it. So tell us about that because the Louvre obviously has been written about, for a long time, but you really bring a fresh view.
Well, I'm not an art historian, so it's not an art history book, and I'm not a tour guide, so it's not a how-to book. I'm a reporter, and I decided to look at the Louvre like the subject for a reporter. And I think it's the first time a reporter has ever done a book about the Louvre. So I interviewed everybody from the current director to the previous two directors, every single head of department, as many people as I could who work for the Louvre, from the architects to the window washers for the Louvre pyramid to the firefighters who took me into the basement and up to the roof, the gardeners in the Tuileries, which belongs to the Louvre, tourists, and I just had fun. I found like the night watchman who still believes in ghosts, for example, and the paintings curator who hates the Mona Lisa and but found other paintings that he likes better. And then my most fun thing is, the Louvre, you can look, I said you can look at the Louvre through animals. You can also look at the Louvre through food. So if any of your grandchildren are old enough to be
Oh,
foodies,
they
there are
are.
incredible food paintings. So I asked Guy Savoy, who some people think is the best chef in the world, to come to the Louvre and meet with the head of paintings. And we looked at food paintings together. And then we ate some of the same foods at Guy Savoy's restaurant.
Oh, oh my gosh.
It's
Isn't
really hard work, but somebody's
that
got to
it's
do it.
exactly darn the luck.
Yeah, it was like really hard research there.
Well, I can see how you've taken and you've really entered in kind of that personal connection, which is what you've done in your other books.
Well, that part was really fun because along the way, I just discovered so many characters on so many different levels, from very uh, elite intellectual art historians down to the the person who has to, clean the toilets.
How wonderful. Everyone has a special purpose. So, do you have a personal favorite exhibit at the Louvre?
There, I can't say it's that kind of is like asking a parent, do you have a favorite
Child.
child, or a grandparent, do you have a favorite grandchild?
No, you're not
No,
allowed.
it also depends on the day. It depends on my mood. I mean, when you come to Paris, we will go and look at some of my favorite works of art depending on the day. Now, there is a painting, for example, of a Sicilian mercenary, and if I'm ever stranded on a desert island, I'd like that painting with me because I'd like him to protect me. But that's just depends on, maybe on another day I'd want the Mesopotamian goddess of power who can protect me in my pocket.
Oh. Oh, it's wonderful. Well, okay. I bet you have a new project. I just knowing you, I'm sure something is brewing in your head for a
I
next.
want to come and be your intern, Kathy. I think what you're doing is absolutely great, and I think you need a Paris bureau.
Absolutely. You've always said that. I think you can be the Paris Bureau. And we'll get our fix. We'll get our monthly fix.
Correct, correct.
We'll work on that. So, any new plans? How about the Notre Dame? Is that of interest?
Notre Dame, no, Notre Dame has been done and it's been done well. And I think right now, honest and truly, the book hasn't even been published yet. It's being published April 1st and April Fool's Day. And I really just want to enjoy this book. I really don't want to think yet about what's next in any way. I really want to just ride this wave and just have fun. And also the Louvre, you can never master the Louvre. And so it may be that I look at it in a little different way.
Oh gosh, that's wonderful. Well, okay, before we close, I have a final question for you. With all of your remarkable experiences and life journeys, Do you have some life lessons that you'd like to share, perhaps the legacy you'd like to impart on future generations?
It's really interesting because when we started this program, you talked about life lessons, and this is one of the key uh, traits that I try to instill in young people around me. I mean, what I think is really important and important right now is what I call the partage. It's the sharing. I mean, we are in a moment in our history where we're not listening to each other and we're not just taking the time to find common ground with the other. And, that's what I tried to do with my journalism throughout my entire life is how do I find common ground with everybody from a farmer to a president to from a worker to a king. And I tried to do it in the Louvre. And I think the more we can try to find common ground with each other is a key. It's a key to journalism, but it's also a key to life.
Absolutely. Oh, that is so beautifully said. And it's a beautiful message. Elaine Sciolino, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your stories, your wisdom. I know our listeners will be inspired to bring their grandchildren on their own art-filled adventures. I can't wait for our next visit to the City of Lights and walk the Louvre with you and hopefully with my grandbabies.
Just remember, bribe them and hot chocolate and bribes.
Grammy, me, I'm good at bribing.
Great.
And to our listeners, if you're planning a trip to Paris or just want to experience the Louvre from the comfort of home, be sure to pick up Adventures at the Louvre. Until next time, keep making memories and sharing stories with your precious grands. Thanks for tuning in to the Grands Club podcast. Thanks, Elaine.
Kathy, that was really fun.